Greetings and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk with Chief and Stero, the Caribbean Connection. We are joined here today by a good brethren from Texas, and he is a Trump supporter. We are always open to different opinions. We're going to discuss, analyze, should I say, the outcome of the election, what went wrong for the Democrats, and what went right for the Republicans. Trump 2.0. Introduce yourself, sir.
Greetings. I'm Kevin, Jamaican transplant to Texas, little over a decade now, and always been interested in politics. Was a Labourite back home. I'm a conservative here, and there are some similarities between the two once you look at the underlying philosophies of the parties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
And needless to say, it would be safe to say you're pleased with the results of the election.
um, yes, pleased with the results. Expected those results and
Okay.
have a few insights on it as to what led to it and where it goes from here.
Well, if you don't mind expounding upon those insights as
Uh,
far as where you feel it goes from here.
all right. Okay. So first thing, um, if two politicians contend and there is dispute between them on policy in terms of what you should do. Like, this one is saying we should have more trade, that one is saying we should have less, little things like that. Then whoever gets the vote is the one more people agree with. If there's a dispute between them about what the facts are rather than what opinions are, what we should do, then the verdict of the vote is who do people believe? So if I'm here saying the cow is yellow and you're saying the cow is purple, and I choose those colors carefully because we know cows don't come in either of those colors at all. And the one who's saying the cow is purple is the one that wins, it means that fewer people believe it's yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And fewer people believe what is being said by the one who claims that the cow is yellow. And that is the main thing with this election verdict, that the claims and counterclaims between the parties against each other, now we know who most people believe and who they don't.
Okay. So in other words, they're basically analyzing what took place with the outcome of the election, and they're saying that, well, in terms of Kamala,
Hmm.
she's selling a product, right?
Yeah.
And the product, she have to basically convince the people that this product is good. It's excellent. It's a good buy, right?
Hmm.
And she weren't able to package that product, right, in a nice package box with a nice wrapper on it, and hand it over to the people or sell it to the people, right? And why they're saying this is that when they asked her questions during the election, in
Hmm.
terms of what can she bring to the table that she have not done so far with under Biden, and what would you change about what took place under the Biden administration? And she say nothing. In other words,
Yeah.
like she had to differentiate herself. Like, what are you going to bring to the table? What will you be selling to the people for them to analyze it and say, you know what, we're going to give you a chance. You know, and that's where lies the issue on her end. She wasn't able to differentiate her policy versus Biden policy, in addition to say, okay, what I will bring forth for the next 4 years, whether it's domestically or internationally.
That's the product analogy
Mm-hmm.
is a good one,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a lack of packaging.
Mm-hmm.
She had the celebrity endorsements.
Correct.
She had the media backing from the majority of
Yeah.
mainstream media
Mm-hmm.
outlets. She had more of a marketing budget, more
Yes.
than double the spending power of
Yes.
the Trump campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So all the packaging was there. What
Mm-hmm.
was lacking was the product.
The product. Yeah.
And
I agree.
and part of that lacking product was, for instance, with the interviews where politicians talk for a living.
Yes.
And in the case of a executive of a superpower, a major part of your job is talking to hostile, powerful people, which means in specific to the current time, whoever is going to take that office in January
Yes.
will need to sit down with Vladimir Putin,
Yes. Kim Jong Un. You
Kim
know.
Jong Un,
Um,
um,
Hamas and
right,
Hezbollah and
yeah,
Netanyahu, and the list goes on and on.
and the list goes on and on. Now
Yeah.
these, like them or hate them, these are formidable people.
Yes.
I'll give you a bit of their resumes. Vladimir Putin, before he went into politics, was a part of the KGB.
Yes.
They don't give official word as to what he did,
Mm-hmm.
but rumor is he was an assassin.
Yes. And then he
This
became
this is
a
this is
director of KGB
right.
before the transition to FSB.
Yes. Um, Netanyahu is as formidable as that.
He was a special force soldier in the Israeli army as well. He
Right.
served in combat mission. He also went to MIT in Massachusetts before he got into
Exactly.
politics.
Right. In other words, the as Ninja Man would put it, no, sorry, Bounty Killer would put it, I'm a big bad man from 19 oh long.
Yes.
Yeah, man, of course. Um,
Yeah.
I
Now,
also know that
now
Vladimir
to
Putin is a judo practitioner of
right.
the highest degree.
I've seen him do a few demos on screen. And one of the most interesting demos, I wish I had time to search up the video, was when he did a little wrestling match
Hmm.
with a small child, about a 12-year-old girl, maybe 10, and she threw him. Now, what's interesting with that is if you watch closely, it's him doing all the work
Yeah.
and making it look like this little kid overpowered him. That takes skill. And
Hmm.
he was well over age 50 when he did that.
Yeah.
So these are not to be people to be played with. So the thing is, if you're going to be able to sit down and job with these men and get them to agree to give up things they claim to be rightfully theirs, in order to make peace in the world.
I
Because
want I want to expound on that because I was watching a report and they were asking some of Hispanic male voters as to why they didn't vote for Kamala. And some of the responses were they believe she is not strong enough. She doesn't exude power, force to stand up to a lot of these world leaders or what have you. They believe that she will be a walkover. They will just walk over her. I don't know if it's the machismo of just being a man per se, or this is from what they have seen over the period of years of her being the vice president. Because prior to her taking take on the role of vying for the presidency, you didn't really see much of her. She was like in the background, per se. And then yet again, the media, they mostly focus on Trump anyway. So, and in all actuality, I think Trump received more media attention than Biden himself.
I'd like to add on to that.
Hmm.
A number of black males were interviewed, and I was listening to a radio program in the morning, and it's Caribbean based, and a lot of the male individuals that chimed in on their perspective of the whole, why they wouldn't support Kamala was because that they felt that they did not want a woman ruling or
Hmm.
being the head of anything.
And this is on the Caribbean station.
Yes, sir.
And I'm quite sure they more than likely will have said that, because Caribbean men in general is very, machismo, and how it goes,
Uh,
right? Per se.
that is an aspect of it. There's
Yeah.
some skepticism of female leadership.
Yeah.
However, there are female leaders, and there have been female leaders who do command that respect.
Yes.
And so, for instance, you remember the old Iron Lady back in the
Hmm.
day,
Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher.
Hmm.
In more recent times,
Angela Merkel, right?
she's all right.
She's all
But
right.
here's one
Mm-hmm.
who you might not think I would reference. Nikki Haley.
Mm.
Now, Nikki Haley in the primary, she's the one Republican that actually ran well, one of the few that actually ran a, an anti-Trump campaign in the Republican primary this
Correct.
year.
Yes.
And she lost like everybody else. But what I remember about her is that she was UN ambassador in the last Trump administration,
Mm-hmm. And she
and
was
there's
tough. I remember.
and she was tough.
Very tough.
She went into the UN General Assembly with leaders of most of these countries there, and I think it was Iran that was misbehaving at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this nice, soft, pretty voice. It's a, as a, we're locked and loaded.
I remember that. I remember that.
And yeah, so you can be feminine, you can be motherly, and
Mm-hmm.
still bring the power.
Yeah.
However, you have to be able to go. Now, if you can't go and talk to a little fella like Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Joe Rogan used to be a fighter, but these days he talks to people for a living.
Yes.
And he'll sit down and chat to intellectuals and academics and businessmen for 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the interview with him
Yeah, I
and
missed that
Trump.
interview, but I heard about it.
Yeah,
Some
or
tidbits.
him, or him. There have been like 4 interviews with him and Elon Musk, and there's interviews with him and most of the other prominent people around you can think of. He
Mm-hmm.
does like 2 or 3 per week, and he's been at it for years. He's a #1 podcast in the world. He reaches millions of
Millions,
people
yeah.
with every episode, and she couldn't talk to him, and everybody knew she couldn't talk to him when the issue of going for an interview
So
with
so so so
with
she
him
didn't
came up.
she didn't go to the interview,
She
but
didn't go.
and Trump went, and I think
Trump went.
his endorsement, um I think exponentially it brought out a lot of voters from what they're saying. A
It,
lot of his supporters, because he has like millions of supporters.
his
And
endorsement may
hmm
have helped, but more than the endorsement was that his viewers got to see Trump. Because
hmm
the kind of interviews he does is not your typical media interview where they try to get at an issue and they try to dig at you to get this sound bite or that. You
Yes.
just sit down and talk,
Mm-hmm.
and it talks for a long time. So
Yeah.
by the end of it, you get to know what the person is really like.
Yeah.
He does. He
So
does tend to castigate his opponent
not
more often than
much.
none.
I mean, he doesn't do that much roughing up. I mean, like one of his early interviews with Elon was is famous because by about 2/3 of the way through the interview, they were smoking. They lit up a spliff and were
Are
smoking
you
weed
serious?
on live on air. Yeah, that
Wow.
you can search for that one too. Just look for Elon smoking weed.
Elon is very unconventional,
Yeah,
huh?
but that's the kind of interview Joe Rogan does,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll accommodate for certain things. Like
Yeah.
for instance, with Trump, I know that Trump would have laid down the condition you cannot smoke during this interview
Yeah.
because if you're in a small room like that with somebody who smokes, you're
Mm-hmm.
smoking too.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing he actually demanded.
Yeah.
Anything else, ask whatever you want.
Yeah. I just want to just to touch on some of the outcome, the statistics in terms of sex by race in terms of the voters. So
Um,
white
w-
men,
it- Hold on before we get to
mhm,
those.
mhm,
The most important statistic for me
mhm.
was one that CNN uncovered in the wee morning hours. They
Of during the day of the election,
they
general
they
election,
no
or
after
after.
during
Okay.
when right after it was declared.
Hmm.
They asked which counties had an increase in turnout for Kamala versus Biden
Hmm.
across the country. And they
Yes.
brought up the map of that, and it
Hmm.
was completely blank. Not even one county
Correct.
anywhere in the
I seen.
country
Actually, I saw that.
had more turnout for her than for Biden.
I saw that.
I've never seen that before.
I saw that. She lost. She lost a lot of the
She,
inroads that Biden
she
was able to
lost
galvanize during the last
she lost
election.
everything. She
Yeah.
lost rural, she lost urban, she lost
Urban,
wealthy communities, she lost
suburban,
poor communities,
yeah,
she lost the suburbs, she lost everywhere.
yeah.
All 50 states, all 3,000 something counties,
Hmm.
she went down.
Yeah.
She got 14 million votes less
And Biden.
than Biden got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a lot. You
Hmm.
know, when you lose 14 million out of 85 million, the you have to ask a couple of tough questions.
Hmm.
Were all 85 million votes the first
Hmm.
time real? Because or were you just that horrible a candidate that such a large proportion of people who voted for your predecessors went running the other way this time?
I'm of the belief. Yeah. Let's go back to before I expound on that in terms of the percentage. So white man, she got 39% of their votes versus Trump 59%. White woman, she got 47% of the vote versus Trump 52%.
Hmm.
Black man, she got 78% of the vote versus Trump 20%. So in terms of the black man, because they were saying that overwhelmingly amount of black men will be supporting Trump based on the economy and the crime and all that
Hmm.
stuff, right? But that didn't materialize. Black,
Um,
mhm,
20, hold on.
yeah,
The Democrat Party has had a lock on the black vote
yes,
for decades now.
hmm,
Since they got black people to switch from Republican to Democrat in the middle of the last
yeah.
century.
Do the Dixiecrat eras
Yeah, actually, they got them to switch before that.
before, yes, a little bit before that.
Yeah,
But
and
where during the voting act, that's when majority of them switched over.
no, it's actually during the. Let me see if I can remember. I think it was the New Deal,
The New
which
Deal.
would have been back in President I think Roosevelt, the one that did World War Two. Yeah, during his time, he passed a bunch of social reforms. Basically, he launched the war against poverty, and one of the outcomes of that was black people went from voting 60% Republican to voting 60% Democrat in over one election.
Because black folks in America has always been conservative, because they always like follow the church doctrine and so forth.
Yes,
Even Martin Luther King was a Republican for many years,
right.
you know. But what happened also when Lyndon B. Johnson um, was the president, a lot of Democrats jumped ship at that time as well and went over to the Republican Party.
Not really.
No.
They didn't.
Yeah,
I can tell you about that.
Okay, go ahead.
It was a Civil Rights Act. It was
Correct.
one of the most contentious bills ever
Hmm.
passed in America. The the Democrats who were opposed to it mounted the longest filibuster in U.S. history trying to stop it. And when the filibuster failed, they all voted against it. And there were more that between the House and the Senate, there were well over 100 Democrats that voted against that bill.
So what happened to those Democrats
Those those
that were
Democrats that
yeah.
voted that were against that had the filibuster and voted against it and so on,
Hmm.
one of them had a falling out with his party and stayed in this house as an independent for a few years. Then he went over to the Republicans,
Hmm.
but that was just one.
So you're saying during the
The
time of
the
Lyndon B.
rest,
Johnson, they
yes,
already left. They already left the.
no, they didn't. They didn't leave. They
Mhm,
stayed.
mhm,
The last of them, in fact, he was one of the leaders of it.
mhm,
He stayed in the Democrat Party. He
mhm,
stayed in the Senate
mhm,
from then until he died in office
mhm,
about a little over a decade ago.
mhm.
When he died, Joe Biden read the eulogy at his funeral and described him
Oh,
as
you're
a.
not talking about Strong Thurman? No,
No,
not him.
that's not
Okay.
strong term, and that this is Senator Byrd.
Oh, Bird. Yes, I
Yeah,
remember him now. Yeah,
he's one of the longest serving
serving.
senators
Yeah.
in U.S. history.
Hmm.
I I don't remember how long he was in the Senate. It's like 50 years or something like that, or
Yeah,
60. It was ridiculously long. And when he died, Joe Biden described him as a friend and mentor.
I remember.
Right. The Clinton, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and had similar words for him.
Hmm.
And this man was actually a member of the Klan.
Of the Klan. Yeah, I remember.
There's dispute over what office he held, whether it was exalted Cyclops or whatever,
The
but
Grand Wizard or
he
whatever.
or
Yeah.
Grand Wizard. But he was a Klan officer, and there were
Allegedly.
Klan members who reputed to, no. He put it in his
But
autobiography.
biography. Okay.
He was a Klan member.
Okay.
so
Mhm.
getting back to this election, I
Yeah.
think a lot of voters that went to the polls were voting for personality as opposed to policy. How do you feel about that?
I think it's the reverse.
You think
The
so?
Yeah. Generally, if an election is on personality, Democrats win. If it's on policy, Republicans win. That's been the pattern over the years.
Mhm.
This election was won on the economy. Inflation, it has been ridiculous. It was one on immigration, that wide open border.
Hmm.
Immigrants don't like it.
Even the Latinos didn't like it. As a
The
matter of fact,
Latinos,
there was a
it-
gentleman. Let me to cut you. There's a gentleman. He's been here for 50 years, and he came here illegally through the border. And he even basically was supporting Trump, saying that it's too much coming to unchecked in the
yes,
country. I
yes,
I don't understand a
I
person that's,
understand.
you understand? Okay. Because
Okay,
I
you
don't, me personally, I don't understand a person that
all right.
came into the United States
Let
illegally,
me
and then he don't want other individuals to do the same thing
yeah,
that he did.
right. I understand. I mean, I came here legally, so my situation is different. But
Hmm.
consider this: the border from Mexico to the U.S. has been wide open for 4 years.
Yes,
This is
completely.
completely. This is advertised.
Yes,
Everybody knows that if you go to Mexico, walk across the border from Mexico into the US, you're they're giving you a free cell phone and a little pocket change so you can take a bus to wherever you want
I'm gonna
to
go
go.
blank for a second. Okay, I keep on speaking. Okay, thank you.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Come. Hmm.
and despite this, you have hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans
Yeah.
who saw this opportunity and did not grab it. Now, you know, and I know that the majority of Jamaicans, if you give them a visa and a plane ticket, they're gone. They want to be in America, or they want to at least visit.
Yeah.
But a large proportion wants to migrate.
Correct.
Jamaica, in terms of legal migration each year, Jamaica possibly has the highest proportion of its population migrating to the US. There are like 500,000 Jamaicans in New York alone,
Correct.
and for such a tiny country. Yet the Jamaic very few Jamaicans took that chance, because you don't need a visa to go from Jamaica to
To
Mexico.
Mexico, yeah. Then it went
You
straight to
just you
Mexico.
just
Yeah.
need a passport and a plane ticket.
Hmm.
So to get here, all a Jamaican would have to do under the Biden open border regime is buy a ticket to Mexico, to any part of northern Mexico, fly there and walk across.
Hmm.
I have a
And
question
then,
for you, not to cut you when you're finished. Sorry.
yeah, but they didn't do it. And the few who did it are the ones you don't want living next door, whether you're in Jamaica or you're in America. You're talking about people who are doing that while there's a warrant for them at
Yes.
in Jamaica.
Hmm.
They they head to Mexico
Hmm.
and come here. You're talking about people who couldn't get a visitor's visa because of their criminal record.
Denied. Yes.
That's why they're doing that. So the the people who are going to be a benefit to your community, not even thinking on national scale or whatever, just the people who are going to come and live next door to you, don't bother you, don't move anything out of your yard, don't trouble your daughter. Those people are not taking that opportunity. It's the other set who are doing it.
Yeah. And there has
And
been
it's
a,
not even all, it's just
yeah,
a decent
some.
chunk of it. So that's why the Hispanics especially
Hmm.
are going to object,
Yeah.
because most of the people who came are Spanish speakers, so they're living in the existing Hispanic communities.
And they're not a monolithic. It's
They're
in
not
terms. Yeah.
monolithic,
Hmm.
but even when they're from the same community,
Yeah.
I see a if I see a one other man cross the road from me,
And that's one order.
most
That's from
Americans don't
Spanish
know
Town
the
in Jamaica.
right. That's the
Yeah.
one order I'm talking about,
Mm.
not any decent one
Yes.
order. The Americans aren't going to be able to tell the difference between the one order man and me. It's
Mm-hmm.
just two dark-skinned youth with a funny accent.
Yes.
But I can tell the difference. I know that this man is one order and is not a good neighbor you want to have around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is somebody who was a problem in Jamaica and he's coming here to be a
Yeah,
problem
it's
here
a
too.
transplant to the United States. Yeah.
The question: how do you feel about President-elect Trump and all his criminal charges?
His criminal charges are one of the things that got him elected.
You really think so?
Yes, I think so because they
Yes.
galvanize a lot of the MAGA supporters because they rally behind him
If
and they
if
believe that he's being attacked.
yeah, if they had not filed a single criminal charge against him, he DeSantis would have been the nominee.
Really? Interesting.
Yes. The DeSantis was leading in the primary. Trump
In the
was
beginning, yes.
in the beginning.
Hmm.
Trump was actually a point behind DeSantis. And then they charged him and the primaries basically ended at that point. Everybody says, look, if this is allowed to go through, what it means is that the Democrat Party will be determining who we can have as our nominee. And if
Hmm.
they get to determine both their nominee and our nominee, then we have a one party country and they're the only ones who run elections. So that's when everybody decide the core of the Republican Party
Hmm.
decided it is going to be Trump regardless.
I'd like to
So
read.
so
Like,
if they didn't charge him, he would not have even been able to run.
okay.
He would not have been nominated.
I saw something online earlier. I'd like to get your opinion on it, both of you guys. And it reads: it was a podcaster who stated this. It's a masterclass in white privilege. He can't say enough racist things to be a racist. He can't commit enough crimes to be a criminal. He can't fall enough times to be can't fail enough times to be a failure. He can't say
Hmm.
enough things to be stupid. Can't say enough stupid things to be stupid, sorry. The
Hmm.
idea of him overshadows any reality. The quote unquote Christian savior who doesn't know the Bible, the adulterer who has sex with porn stars and steals from charities. It's the promise of the protection of whiteness he represents.
Yeah, that is those are the words of somebody who actually believes everything that the media says about Trump. If
So
you
you,
believe if you believe what they say, then those would be your words too.
so you don't think he's a racist?
Um, Nobody called him a racist until 2015.
But do you think he's racist?
No.
How
All
about
right.
yourself, Chief?
Yes.
Listen,
Period.
if Donald Trump is a racist, then America has 340 million racists.
It's a possibility.
That might be a possibility,
It's a
but you have to
possibility.
have a standard of what you consider
Hmm.
racist. Here's
You got it.
here's
Hmm.
here's my standard of 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 why I don't say he's a racist.
Hmm.
All right. He had interactions with P Diddy early in P Diddy's career. He didn't go to P Diddy's freak out parties. He had his own kind of parties that he goes to.
That's a
No,
disclaimer.
no, no, no.
That's
No,
How
the
do
no,
you
disclaimer.
how do you
no,
know
no,
that?
no, no. That's not the disclaimer. Here's the interesting interaction. That's different from most people.
Hmm.
When P Diddy met up with Trump, he just had like one or two hit songs at the time. He had a couple $1 million, decent money, but not spectacular. But for a youth coming from the ghetto, this is a fortune. This is where you're going off now. You have $2 million. You're going to buy a $1 million car and a two and, re-
Hmm.
and take out a mortgage to get a $2 million apartment and so on. Basically, you're going to be broke. He met up with Trump, and Trump said, no, 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 young man, don't do that. Live modestly for the time being, even though you have this vast amount of money coming to you relative to what you had before, and take the bulk of it and invest it. And he took P. Diddy by the hand, walked him through his first real estate deal, bought a small apartment building, little something like about a 40 unit in Manhattan. And he bought that. The building started making him money. He kind of got a feel for investing, and started spending most of his music income on investment rather than on personal luxuries. The personal luxury buying came later when he decided to buy baby oil by the truckload. but the thing is, when Trump was dealing with him and teaching him to invest and teaching him to go from the stage of just being another black boy who makes some money and then later on end up with nothing, to being basically permanently wealthy for generations, if he could just keep his nose out of the garbage. If he had just been halfway decent and not into all the sexual stuff, what he set up, the path he started P. Diddy on, would have led to the entire Diddy family being wealthy for generations. You do not no racist is going to do that for somebody of a race that he's against.
I do see where he used to party with like Shabba Ranks and
Super Cat.
Super Cat and because he was
Yes.
like the man back in the 80s and 90s.
He is the individual that has been name checked in
In a
rap
lot of
music,
songs.
the most. Someone actually went and counted the amount of songs he's mentioned in. There's no rap artist who's mentioned in more songs than him.
Yes,
There's
correct.
no other public figure. And this isn't since he's running for president.
No,
This was
because
before he went into politics.
because it was like glitz and glamour because he was constantly in the news, right? And especially when he opened the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, when the glitz and glamour, a lot of Hollywood celebrities, doing the grand opening, and it was like really, really, he was up there in terms of celebrity status.
I mean, people like Al Sharpton were singing his praises. The last time he went on The View in 2015, before the order came down that you're going to hate Trump now, everybody was greeting him with hugs and kisses on The View, saying, our friend Donald Trump. But then he actually started running for office and became a genuine threat to the Democrat power base. And the order went out that, look, Trump is a racist. We're going to run with that argument.
He pivoted, and then he started talking a whole bunch of things that people were not in agreement with. You cannot deny that.
Yeah, he talked a lot of things that people are not in agreement with. For instance, he said, we're gonna build a wall on the border.
Yeah.
And we're going to lock it down and stop people from entering illegally. He said we're going to bring manufacturing back into America,
which never really manifested.
Let's talk about that.
Because of NAFTA.
The term "Make America Great Again." That campaign phrase that was basically the slogan for his campaign, his election, his presidency. What does that mean to you?
Um, look through the history books. What's the single greatest thing that America has done? A lot of people are going to point to war and
Yeah,
say, "Oh, America won World War II
World War One and World War Two. They
and
helped. Yeah,
World War One too."
yeah,
Yeah, but that was more a cooperative effort.
yeah.
It was America, it was Britain, it was Russia, it was, I mean, even Jamaica played a part in it.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it wasn't that. The greatest thing America did, that's almost exclusively an American achievement, was to put a man on the moon. That was my lifetime ago.
Mm-hmm.
The last person to walk on the moon did it in the 70s. And in all that time, no other nation has managed to do it again. America is right now closer to doing another moon mission than anybody else. That Starship catch that Trump has spoken about in every
Mm-hmm.
speech he made in the last 2 weeks is part of that next moon landing. And the idea is to go with a bigger crew and more equipment and to start establishing a permanent base up there. But the thing is, what is it that happened to America? Why the country that could put some people on the moon on, like, I think 5 different missions in the late 60s, early 70s, had to stop going there and was basically stuck just in low Earth orbit like everybody else? Something declined. That spirit of adventure and innovation that basically said we're not just going to lead the world, we're going to lead the world by such a wide margin that they're going to need a literal telescope to see how far ahead we are, is has been lost. And it's the whole making America great again idea is to bring that back, to get America back to a place where it is leading the world and leading the world by a wide margin.
Yeah, and I think that Ronald Reagan also had used that slogan as well back in the
Yes,
80s. Yes.
yes, he did.
Yeah.
You see, America has an image in the world that people don't understand, when you have people protesting for democracy in small countries that are heading towards tyranny, like Taiwan had it about 2 years ago.
You talking about
They
Hong
they
Kong?
go Hong Kong, sorry, Hong
Yeah.
Kong. They go out on the street to protest waving US flag.
Hmm. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's not, and they aren't the only ones who have done it. It
Were were
happened
they
in
were they being supported by the CIA? Hence the reason why they would wave the American flag.
No, that's not it. The US flag is seen as the symbol of freedom. It's like you're going out to say you're protesting for Christ and you pick up a cross.
Mhm.
It's like it's simply that is the symbol. Another thing to show you how America is viewed. Um, the pullout from Afghanistan the other day, 2021.
Mhm.
Everybody talk about the terrorist attack at the airport, or how it was botched because they left.
It was a blunder. It
Yeah,
was one of the
you're right.
worst on the side of
Right.
on
It
the
was
part of
awful.
Biden. It was terrible.
Yeah, right. But in the midst of all that foolishness, all that blunder, all that chaos, there's something that stuck out to me. They they're packing up and leaving out of the airport in the middle of the city, and they basically wall off the airport, and they're getting down to a skeleton staff now. They don't have enough soldiers on the ground to properly secure the place, but they're trying to hold it down. And somebody go and pass a baby up to a soldier on the fence,
Yeah, I remember that.
and that baby is in America now. The parents of that baby didn't know whether or not they would be able to make it over here. In fact, I don't know whether they did. But
Hmm.
but they, just from the reputation that America has and America's military has, they figure that their child, their baby, is safer in the hands of a US soldier that they do not know than in their own hands in a city run by the Taliban.
But it's also it's
In other words, this is this is like you have your most trusted brother,
hmm
and you find yourself in danger, and you see a trusted brother across the road, and you have your baby. You throw your baby, give your brother. So take care of him for me,
yeah,
and hopefully we'll make it out.
yeah.
I think a lot of that might have been for
That
optics as well, you know?
huh?
I think a lot of that might have been for optics.
No,
No, not
that's
necessarily. No.
no, the optics
Mm-mm.
came after. The person who handed his baby to that soldier did not know there was a camera on him,
Okay.
and he did not care. He just wanted to get his baby to the safest place he could, and that was in a American soldier hand.
I just want to segue on that because I've seen also at the border where a lot of people send their kids, right, with it's called coyotes, right?
Yeah.
Pay them money just to
Hmm.
get the kids across the border. 5 years old, 4 years old,
Yeah.
10 years old. They rather their children grow up in America, buying American as opposed to staying in their country being raised.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
will actually hand over their kids, throw them over the fence to the border patrols.
Yeah. Because they know, like that U.S. soldier. In fact, half of the border patrol agents are ex U.S. soldiers.
Hmm.
You do your 4 years in the army, and then your usual career path after that is you go to some that requires those skills, but is less dangerous, like border patrol, like your local police, your local fireman, and so on. A
Hmm.
lot of them are ex-military,
Ex-military.
and they know that once that border patrol agent has that child in his custody, he may return him to his home country if that is allowed. He
Mm.
may put him in a home. He may keep him there in custody, but he will not allow the child to be harmed once that child comes into his hand, because that is what people expect of America. America is one of the few armies that has gone as far as to conquer another country without raping anybody, without without stealing their stuff. America has a reputation for greatness and for goodness that's better than most.
And most of these soldiers are very disciplined. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that atrocity didn't occur. Yes, it did occur in other previous wars,
sure,
but
tragedies occur.
not to the point of other soldiers doing that to their
No,
enemies.
yes, the way America treats even other soldiers is it makes it easier for them to win wars, because the reputation gets back. Said, things rough on the battlefield. If you surrender to these guys, they'll get you to the back line where you can get better food than they have.
Yeah.
So, and that actually makes fighting the war easier, because the soldier who's dissatisfied with his own command structure will surrender to you. That's why America was able to overrun Iraq in the 90s in like 2 weeks. They they rushed a bunker buster through development in that 2 week period just so that Saddam's little hideout wouldn't be safe, and that's how they got that quick surrender. But the actual military, by the time the bunker buster hit, Saddam did not have a military left around him. He just had his core command structure, the equivalent of Secret Service, left around him. Everybody else had surrendered. All his tanks were gone. All his planes were gone. So America has a reputation, and it was a well-earned reputation, and that reputation is being eroded now. Part of it is the economy.
Yes.
America is 5% of the world population, give or take. It's probably a little less than 5. And yet, at one stage, America was 40% of the global economy. Right now, it's declined to about 28%, which is still large. It's still the largest economy
Well,
in
who's
the
to
world.
blame? Is because a lot of the manufacturing, has gone overseas.
Yeah,
Um,
and the move in the manufacturing overseas sounds like a good idea to an MBA. If you go college for 6 years and all you know is figures and how to make more money and how to increase your profit margin,
yeah.
then moving the manufacturing to another country where labor is cheaper and energy is cheaper and there are fewer regulations might sound like a good plan. But long term, what it does that people don't understand is that when you're making products, the product doesn't stay the same for long. So you
But
make
the value, not the value,
The
sorry,
quality.
quality
no,
declines.
no. That's the thing. The product evolves. So for instance, if you go and find a 1970s TV, the TV that was $5,000 in 1970, it's garbage next to the TV that you can get for $200 at Walmart today. It has a smaller screen. It has a much lower resolution. It weighs 20 times as much. Sorry, what am I saying? About 100 times as much. And
But the quality. But I've
what?
bought flat screen TVs, and it's basically a throwaway product
It is a
because
throwaway product.
within
It
no
got so
time, couple
cheap.
of years, it fall
Yeah,
apart, and you can't
yeah,
even pay to fix it anymore. It costs
yeah.
more money to fix than to
Than
nowadays to buy a
to
new one.
replace it. Yeah, it's a disposable product.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is with that is that these changes didn't happen all at once, and some of the changes came from the R&D lab. Some of them came from customer feedback, and some of them came from the factory floor. When you move that factory floor out of your country, all the factory floor section changes are lost to you. You no longer have an engineer on the factory floor putting this thing together and say, look, if we move this bolt from here to here, it's going to take 10 seconds less to assemble, and it's going to cost $200 less every time we have to do a repair on this part.
Yeah.
The, those things come from the factory. A lot of those things come from the factory floor. But if you underrate the contribution of that factory worker, you think he's just a pair of hands attaching rivet A to bolt B, then you think it's okay to move the factory. But it does more than that. They are the ones bringing the innovation. They're bringing not all the innovation, but they bring a good portion of it.
Yeah.
And that's why, for instance, Tesla is the only company making money on electric cars in America. Everybody's making them, but everybody loses money on them.
Yeah, he's making the profit
Yeah, I
year after
mean,
year.
the F-150 Lightning sells for sells for as much as a Cybertruck, but Ford loses 100 grand on every Lightning it sells.
Wow.
Um, because it's difficult and they don't have that size production of this item yet. When they
Mhm.
get if they get ramped up to 500,000, then they'll be able to squeeze out enough innovation and enough stuff. But even in that, both that factory floor,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the innovations are coming from there. The management doesn't talk about that a lot, so so the average person doesn't know that it matters. So America is falling behind
Yeah.
in technology because the factory floor is abroad, and
Mm.
that needs to change.
Yeah. So in
Speaking
other
of
words, they need to bring it back stateside. A lot of the manufacturing, like
Right. You
near
don't have to
shore.
bring back all of it,
Yeah,
but you have to bring back some.
some of them.
For
Yeah.
instance, textiles. If you never sew another shirt in the US, that's okay because
Low
we
wages.
have been sewing shirts for thousands of years. All the innovations has pretty much been wrung out of that.
But
The only
most of the textile used to be in North and South Carolina. A lot of
Yeah,
the mills and
yeah,
so forth, and they
right.
move it
And
overseas to the Philippines and
it's yeah, exactly.
Asia and places like that.
Right. And so the only thing they do now in the States for textile is that they'll print T-shirts.
Mhm.
So they buy the blank shirts and print them here. And the reason they do that is that you do small orders for custom prints where you're doing a family reunion and you
Yeah.
get 50 shirts with your name and picture on it, that sort of thing.
how do you feel about Amendment 25?
Um, you mean Agenda 25?
Yeah, agenda. I'm sorry.
Um, Interesting thing about
I'm gonna
Agenda
step away for a
25.
second, fellas. Okay.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Agenda 25 was done by the Heritage Foundation. They're an independent think tank. They've been around for decades. And every election cycle, they put out a document similar to Agenda 25. The, that and each time they put it out, whoever wins the election it's public. Anybody is free to adopt any part of it they feel like they want it to be public policy. They're doing this because they think this would be the best thing for the country. And that's so it's just like you going to talk to your MP or to your prime minister to say, hey, this is the best thing I think you can do for the country. You might be wrong, your idea might be stupid, but that's your proposal because you think it's good. You're not in charge of anything, you're just proposing.
Okay.
Now, one previous proposal from them that's well known but it has a different name is Obamacare. The the law that was the Affordable Care Act, they actually proposed the structure of that bill, the rules on how to restructure health insurance and so on to make it more affordable for more people. And Obama came into office right after they did that one. His crew looked it over and they said, yeah, they had hundreds of proposals in there, but this one here on healthcare looked like something we can work with. And they took it and they ran with it. Does that make the that that whole document a Democrat thing or a Obama thing? No, they just proposed some things and he liked one of the things they proposed, and the same thing happening again. They propose a whole bunch of things, 900 pages of proposals.
Yeah, I heard it was that many pages. That's crazy.
It's huge, but these are not idiots, you know. I mean, you have a lot of them are full-time academics, lawyers, professors, whatever, and they get together in this group to put together these proposals. So, regular people gather at the bar to discuss the horse race. Um, Brilliant men get together to discuss how to save the world, and then they put it together in documents. And it's not the Heritage Foundation isn't the only one. You have a whole bunch of think tanks of similar think tanks. But what made it controversial is that the Democrat Party decided they wanted to have a boogeyman. So they went out and said, oh, this is Agenda 25. Agenda 25 is Trump's plan, and we're going to campaign against Agenda 25. The worst of it is most of the things they say is in Agenda 25 is not in there at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they announce all kinds of proposals that's from Agenda 25. Some of them really are in there, some of them are not. For instance, in there, there's a proposal to make voter ID mandatory across the country for every election. That that was actually in there. They don't mention that, although that's kind of a big deal.
How about the eliminating Social Security?
That wasn't in there. What they actually said about Social Security is that a portion of it should be invested, because again, I'm a math nut to an extent. I'm not very good at it, but I like it. So here's the thing: if your Social Security funds are treated like a 401k, except that you can't withdraw it early and you can't borrow against it, but it's taken from you just the way Social Security is today. 12.4% of your income, if I remember correctly, maybe off on the exact proportion, but you take that much of your income from the first day you start working and keep taking it right up until the day you retire. But instead of putting it into just the current Social Security fund, which is used to pay out Social Security benefits immediately, you put it into an investment. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just buy the Dow with it. Or that over time with modest returns, like even 4 or 5% a year, the average person would get a pay increase when you retire. So you're working for $50,000 a year, going through this with Social Security and whatever. When you retire, you're getting 100 grand from Social Security. If it was being invested, the problem is it's not invested. It's loaned to the government at nearly 0% interest, and it's used. So we are now at this stage where the money coming into Social Security is less than the money going out from Social Security. So the worker right now, his Social Security contribution is paying his father's pension rather than the profit from from investing his father's Social Security payment, paying that pension now that he's retired. And that is the biggest thing with Social Security, and that needs to be changed. But most politicians are afraid to talk about it because they lose the elderly vote if you say anything about Social Security other than we are going to protect it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, as far as the election results and the state of the people right now, as far as their reaction to it, um, what's your
Um,
consensus on that?
well, you see, it's a matter of worldview. If you, what's the term? Cognitive dissonance.
Hmm.
If you believe something deep in your soul to be true and you get slapped with the reality that it's not true, you know, you're in your house, you have your heater on, it's warm, it's comfortable. You have a fake skylight that's showing you that's showing bright sunshine, and you actually believe that this is a warm summer day, and you acted like that all the way through. You're getting dressed, you put on your slippers and your shorts, and you open your front door and step outside into knee-deep snow. The shock of that is not the cold that going to hit you. It's a shock of being hit with something that you're not expecting, that you can't believe is real. And that's kind of what happened to them. The people believe what the media tell them. Not everybody. If everybody believed what the media told them, then Trump would have lost by about 50 million votes. But enough people believed what the media told them that they said, look, this man has 30 odd conviction. This man rape woman. This man is a racist. Whatever. There's no way that him can win. There's no way his party can win the House or the Senate. It's just impossible. And then you see it happen, the impossible thing.
Right.
And the cognitive dissonance is jarring. It will take a while for them to even come to terms with the fact that this really happened.
I mean, at the end of the day, the country has spoken,
Oh yeah.
and you know,
I, I think as much as the country has spoken, I think that voice is muted.
you think
It's
so?
not
Why?
as
Why?
here's I mean, it's not as loud as it could have been. Okay, the states, Trump won more states than Harris won. That's a given. However, which states is important? Every single state that Harris won does not have mandatory ID. The majority of states in the country require voter ID when you go to vote. All the states that Harris won do not.
Hmm.
She didn't win a single state that require voter ID. And that is concerning because one of the things that ID does is it makes it more difficult to commit voter fraud, and it makes it easier to catch the fraudsters or track the fraud afterwards. So there is a possibility that that she actually got more votes from people who don't exist due to this lapse in those states that she won.
You really feel that?
Um, it's just a possibility that's out there. I mean, none of the states that have voter ID she won, not one of them. And the majority of states require voter ID, and
But
she didn't win one of those.
in Jamaica, it's required for you to get a voter's ID,
Yeah,
right? And
Jamaica.
quite a bit of other countries around the world. I don't understand how come
America,
America don't do that.
America is the outlier on
Hmm.
voter ID. America is the outlier on paper ballots, and America is the outlier on on getting election results right away.
Yeah,
India, India is currently the largest country in the world. They overtook China earlier this year.
and the
When
election takes a couple of days.
Yeah, their election takes a couple days.
Yeah,
But but even with their election taking a couple days, even with their voter turnout being being nearly twice the U.S. population, not U.S. voter population, the U.S. total
Total,
population.
yeah.
Their voter turnout is nearly twice that.
Yeah.
And India, when the last ballot is cast and the results are known, is consistently one night. They
One
do
night.
their
Oh,
vote count on election night, and they publish their results on election night. America was a laughing stock in 2020 when days after the election we're still trying to figure out who won.
yeah. I remember that. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I have a question from one of the members.
Mm-hmm.
Question is, now we all know that in America, if one has been convicted, you have to note that on a lot of employment applications,
Yeah.
right? That you were a convict. Now,
Mm-hmm.
basically, they're saying that Trump is in the highest office of the land,
Mm-hmm.
and he's convicted, right? He's convicted felon or whatever. What does that, in terms of what does that spell for individuals that going forward will apply for a job?
It doesn't affect them, and
Yes,
here's
correct.
why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A bit of history.
Mm-hmm.
By the time US actually finished its war of independence with England and established itself as an independent nation, the founding fathers, several of them were convicted felons as far from under the British system. All of them were declared terrorists and wanted fugitives at minimum. So it would have ruled out the first 5 presidents from ever run holding that
But
office.
that's under the British system.
Oh
But
yes,
once they
but
declared their
they
independence, then that
no
basically
they
wiped the slate clean, right?
no
Wouldn't
because the
that?
U.S. when they established the U.S. Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
it grandfathered in British common law.
Okay.
So legal precedents, laws that existed in
At that
Britain
time.
and in colonies, they took those as part of their law. So
Okay.
they never wrote a law to say murder is illegal. They just adopted that from Britain.
Yeah, common law. Yeah.
The other thing with it is that they anticipated that a single corrupt jurisdiction, so you have this one because it's a federal system. For those listening from Jamaica, it's not like we're in Jamaica where you have a minister, local government who oversees every mayor.
Mm-hmm.
In America, each town is an independent entity,
Correct.
and each mayor is an independent power unto himself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's thousands of towns. Each county is a separate and independent force, even though there are multiple towns within the county. Or sometimes there's a town that's so big it takes up 2 counties by itself. Shout out to Miami. The what you can do in America is that you can have one corrupt DA and one corrupt judge in a corrupt town. Just go through, pick a jury that's thinks like they do, and convict anybody of anything, even an innocent person of a crime that he couldn't possibly have committed. There's a famous case of Emmett Till.
Yeah.
That little boy was convicted and executed for something that he obviously never did. But it was a corrupt town and a corrupt judge, a corrupt DA, and a corrupt
But
town.
I just want to
They
correct that.
ran it.
It's not Emmett Till. Emmett Till was kidnapped.
Oh,
It was that little boy that was convicted and executed. I forgot his name though.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you know what?
Emmett Till is he visited from Chicago and he
Right.
whistled at a white woman or something like that effect,
Right.
and they went and kidnapped
Yeah.
him. But
Kidnap
it was that little 12-year-old boy that they claim he either raped someone or something like
Right.
that,
Now,
and they convicted him and executed him, electric chair.
yeah. Okay. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Now, it's bad enough when such a jurisdiction does that to an individual for whatever corrupt reason.
Yeah.
You know, Joe has a piece of land. We want his little 20 acres. We're going to railroad him. It happens so often they have a name for it. They're going railroading.
Yeah.
You're going to railroad him and take his property and whatever.
Yeah.
It's bad enough when it happens to an individual, and
Yeah.
some of the time higher courts get to overturn it even if it take them years to do it. If you can do that kind of corruption to take out a president or to take out a presidential candidate, then that corrupt jurisdiction, that one corrupt DA and that one corrupt judge gain the power to overrule the entire electorate of the country and determine who rules.
So, sir, so you're telling me that the election was stolen, and during the
No,
election with
that's
Biden
not
and Trump?
that's not what
Okay.
I'm saying.
Okay, I just want to
What I'm
clarify that.
saying,
Okay.
what I'm saying is, if all right, if I as a corrupt DA want my guy to be president,
Yes.
but the other party has a better candidate who I'm sure is going to beat him, I can just get with my corrupt judge friend and select a jury, a like-minded jury, fling on 34 charges on him, present a case, get a conviction, even if we have to manufacture the law or twist some existing law into a shape that the people who write the law couldn't recognize, extend a misdemeanor into a felony and try it years past the statute of limitation and use it in a way where completely different from how it
So in
has
other words,
ever been
you're
used
saying
before.
so you're saying that it's been weaponized. It was the
Yes.
laws
If
were weaponized
Yes,
against Trump.
what I'm saying is, if you could do that, and the mere fact of convicting this candidate means that he can't run for president, it means that that corrupt judge and that corrupt DA would now have the power to determine who is the president of the country, overruling the voter base of the country. And that is what almost happened in this case, where they managed to get the conviction. And if you actually go and read the law that they use, and read the charges and listen to the case, you realize that the entire thing is BS, because the law they use is a consumer protection law.
Okay.
It's for when I'm selling a energy drink and I'm saying this is healthy, but in reality it's basically just sugar water, and I'm charging $20 for this unhealthy sugar water because it's a weight loss product. That's what that law was made for. It's for protecting the unsophisticated consumer from abuse by a big business. How it was used in this case, was to quote protect some of the largest banks in the country from abuse by one of their largest customers.
So what do you think about him quashing the well, how would I put it? Expelling canceling out the cases against him when he comes into office? The
Uh,
special investigator.
they're not doing it when it comes into office. They announced it this morning that the special prosecutor is being fired and all the cases are being dismissed.
Prior to him coming into office.
Right.
Okay.
And he didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
The same DOJ that appointed the special prosecutor
Prosecutor,
did
yeah.
it.
Okay.
And the reason is simple. The cases never had any merit to begin with. All of them are doomed to die at the Supreme Court and are at lower courts of appeal.
Yeah.
But during the election campaign,
Mm-hmm.
they know that they know that the American people are by and large law abiding and would be hesitant to vote for somebody facing criminal charges, yet let alone a convicted felon. And that's why so much of their campaign material use the term convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
So many times you'd hear the Democrats on here talking about this 34 times convicted felon. They know that this would be a turn off to people. And that's what it was done for. It was to create the basis for that claim. The only problem they had is that enough people explained how fraudulent the cases were
Mm-hmm.
that what's it now, 60 odd million people or 70 odd million people
Mm-hmm.
voted for him anyway.
So what do you think about what advice would you give Kamala or whoever aspired to be president coming in the next 4 years, or to the Democrats, in
To the
terms of how to
Democrats,
turn things around? I know you're not
um,
here to
I'll,
advise
I'll,
them
I'll
because of
I'll give
your,
I'll give the
of the status
I'll
of
freely
being,
give the advice
yes.
because I know that they'll ignore, but I know they'll ignore it, but I'll freely give it. Reshape your platform.
Mm-hmm.
Offer things that actually that are actually beneficial to America and that
Mm-hmm.
the American people actually want. Do not put yourself in a position where you have to lie to people about what your policies are for
Mm-hmm.
them to vote for you. So, for instance, on abortion, the majority of Americans say abortion is okay in certain circumstances. I
Yeah.
think that's like 50 something percent. And they take that to say, yes, everybody wants abortion. But dig a little deeper. If you say, okay, after 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
the percentage that says that's okay drops to like 20. Most people don't want you to kill what's basically a fully formed baby. So, but the Democrats won't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And
A matter
every abortion law they
of,
propose is in effect unlimited abortion for any reason up until the moment of birth.
A matter of fact, with the statistic, it said that only 19% of voters, abortion was like on the table up front for them.
Right.
Majority of the voters, what their concern was the economy, right? Immigration, the border,
Yeah.
and crime, because
Correct.
a lot of them are saying that under the Democrats, and especially in these major cities, they passed these laws in which is catch and release, number one. Number two, shoplifting. They make shoplifting a misdemeanor. You get caught or whatever, and they put a slap on your wrist, and you come out the same day out of the jail. Or they choose, they tell you don't confront these shoplifters. Now you go into the stores. They're saying you go into the stores, you have to basically go up front or ring a bell for the clerk to come and open all these
To get
glass
someone to
cases and
come and
stuff, to come and
open the
open it up.
glass.
Yeah, because of this these
Yeah.
smash and
And
grabs,
that's
or
and it and
these
that's not
individuals going into the
right.
stores.
And that's not Yeah, and that's not all of it. When you
Mm-hmm.
see in a town having so much shoplifting and looting of stores that CVS and what have to be in that town, these are gigantic
Yeah.
companies. They have millions of dollars
Yes.
in surplus revenue per day. They can
Mm-hmm.
absorb some losses. So when they have to
Yeah.
close down stores in a town, it's at the tail end of the mess. By the time it gets to where
Yeah.
Walmart and CVS has to close, then the little mom and pop store, the little bodega with with run by an immigrant and his family,
Mm-hmm.
that had to close 2 years before Walmart feeling the pressure to where they have to
Yeah.
close to. So what they do is they're turning entire communities into ghost towns. You go through San Francisco, you have entire streets where every shop boarded up.
Yes, correct.
Not businesses just closing down
And a
and
lot of
leaving.
homeless people, and they come into the
Right.
store and just loot, and
Yeah.
you can't do
And
anything about it.
right, and that isn't good for anyone because if the shop is closed, if the shops are all closed, then the people can't get the goods and services
Yeah.
that they need. The
Mm-hmm.
the people can't get jobs because the shops aren't there to employ them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is worse for everybody, and that's the result of that kind of policy.
Yeah.
It's idiotic. In
Yeah.
Texas, we are in the opposite direction. We still stick to the old way. If somebody is robbing your store and you shoot him for it, the police will come and take a statement and they'll review the
Oh, it's
security
a
footage.
stand your ground state, right?
It's a stand your ground
Yeah, just
state.
like Florida.
It's a stand your ground state. It's a castle doctrine state.
Mm-hmm.
you it's a constitutional carry state,
Yeah.
and you might think that, oh, so this lead to a whole lot of people getting shot.
No.
No, we have less shootings than California.
Yeah.
It people know that these are the rules, so they follow the rules.
Yeah.
So you do have shoplifting here, but the shoplifting we get here is that somebody will go to Walmart and load up a cart, and they know that if they go to the human cashier,
Yeah.
that's going to be $230. So they go to the self checkout and get a second opinion and
Mm-hmm.
pay $120 and get out of the store without anybody notice. Say, you basically just stole $110 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
That's how they shoplift here.
Yeah.
It's peaceful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on a scale that the store can absorb the damage.
Yeah.
It's not this wild looting, because if you go, 30 of you, and you do a smash and grab like they do in these big cities,
Mm-hmm.
then the the cashier, the security guard, the other customer, any of them can shoot you.
Yeah.
So because people know that that is possible, they don't give them the opportunity to shoot. So
Yeah.
they just don't do it.
Yeah.
So we don't have any of those smash and grabs here.
Yeah. Well, one of the number one question
Hmm.
that was asked by American voters:
Yeah.
are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And up to 80 to 90% of individuals say no, they're not better off today than they were 4 years
Right.
ago under Trump.
Yeah. The statistics back that up.
Yeah.
Under Trump, the average incomes increased faster than the rate of inflation. Not only that, but the increase was concentrated at the lower end of the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So the person who's doing who is working at a fast food counter, or who is cutting hair or cutting grass, that person saw his income increase more on a percentage basis than the professional and than the business owner did. And
Mm.
the impact that has on people is underestimated, because when you're making, $20,000 a year and barely eking out a living, and inflation is down at below 2%, and your income is growing 5 and 6%, you feel more comfortable. Your debts start getting paid down.
Yeah.
You start, little higher up the scale, you start making extra payments on your mortgage for try clear it a few years earlier. You
Mm-hmm.
know, people start be more hopeful.
Yeah.
And the this administration reversed that. They
Mm-hmm.
passed some bills, did pump some funds into the economy, and got inflation going at a fast clip. Wages actually declined
It's one of the
overall.
fastest increase in inflation over 50 years. A matter of fact,
Right.
yeah. At
So
one
you
time,
have inflation going up and wages going down.
going down. Yeah.
So people were the typical household is 4,000 or more dollars poorer
Mm,
in terms of annual income than they were under Trump. So yes, things are harder. It means
mhm.
that somebody who used to buy orange juice for his kid is now buying soda, because they can't afford the extra $2 to get the bottle of orange juice over the
Mhm.
bottle of soda.
Yeah.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
So do you think that when Trump come into office, he's going to go on his retribution and start with
Um,
deportation and going after
here, here's the
his
thing with
enemies?
here's the thing with Trump. Um, in in terms of how he thinks, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he wants to do that, because there are people who have wronged him, and then he'll take them on. I mean, his running mate, his vice president this time around, JD Vance. 4 years ago, JD Vance was calling him
The
Hitler,
worst for the worst person in the world.
right? And yet he was able to say, okay, all right, you see things different now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can work together. Come on as my vice president. That's the highest trust I can put anybody in. Because once that person is a vice president, he's one heartbeat away from taking your job,
Yeah.
your heartbeat. But he did that and that he's done that over the years with many other people. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the war between him and Ted Cruz in 2015 was
Mm-hmm.
was legendary. But a couple of years after that, Ted Cruz standing for re-election, and he was down in Texas campaigning with him against Beto.
Because he wanted Trump. Ted Cruz wanted Trump's blessings,
Yeah,
and know that
yeah,
the MAGA supporters will rally
right.
behind him.
So
Hence the reason.
so if it's up to him alone,
Mm-hmm.
there probably won't be much in the way of retribution. The
Okay.
problem is people who study history
Mm-hmm.
and civics knows that there has to be retribution, not because you hate the person or because you're angry or anything like that, but simply to maintain law and order.
Okay.
People abuse public office,
Mm-hmm.
almost drive the country to civil war i-
Mm-hmm.
with that abuse of their public office. And they, if that's allowed to stand, they'll do it again. Maybe
Yeah.
not these same people, but
Mm-hmm.
another generation a few years from now.
Yes.
So for the sake of restoring public trust and preventing a recurrence, there needs to be some penalties, some retribution, and frankly, I don't think Trump would be the one to do it, but
Hmm.
hopefully he appoints an attorney general that has the stomach to do that because it is necessary.
Okay.
The, some of the stuff they have done is just insane.
Okay.
Like the Proud Boys,
Hmm.
they're doing 20 odd years in prison. And if you actually check the evidence against them and the charges that they were convicted on, it makes no sense at
Well,
all.
Trump said he's gonna
He's going to pardon.
commute there, pardon them the sentence and
Yes,
so
he's
forth.
going to pardon not just them, the thousand odd people that they've been
Yeah.
persecuting. And he has to. In fact, if Biden is as politically savvy as I think he is,
Hmm.
he will preempt that by pardoning them himself.
So, just in terms of wrapping up, in conclusion, what advice can you give to America in general post-election in terms of
Post-election,
yeah.
um, remember that you can't just trust any one source for information.
Okay.
People will lie if it's to their benefit. So when you hear something, check other places
Hmm.
and check with your own experiences, your
Hmm.
own immediate people around you, and know that once you can confirm that this entity, this individual is lying about this subject that you know well, you know that you need to be careful of anything they say on any other subject.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds just
That
about right.
that's
Yeah.
advice for the public in general.
Okay.
Um, for federal employees,
Hmm.
um, s- go put ban your belly, go on a crash saving plan right now
Hmm.
because there is a chance over the next 2 years that half of the federal government will be unemployed.
So, in other words, saying Trump will cut on a lot of the on the waste or
It's not just the waste. When you have a department with 50 people in it and the department costing the taxpayer, you know, $20 million to run between staff and equipment and everything, you might think, okay, so this is a $20 million burden, and we
Mhm,
put these 50 people out of work and we close down that office and we save 20 million. But it's bigger than that
mhm,
because an entity that doesn't need to exist but exists anyway,
mhm,
or has a mandate that's spread beyond what it should have been, will become a hindrance
mhm.
to everybody else.
Okay.
And since I started off by mentioning him, let me close out by mentioning him.
Okay.
Elon Musk right
Mhm.
now doing his Starship. They're blowing up rockets and they're crashing rockets because they're doing development on a fast pace.
Yes.
The the FAA fined him $300,000 for using the deluge system. Basically, it dumps uh, thousands of gallons of water onto the launch pad underneath the rocket while it's launching to dampen the noise because water converting to steam make less noise than burning concrete.
Yeah.
And and that that fine for dumping this water was levied by the FAA. Now, the fine itself makes no sense because what did he dump? Actual drinkable tap water. In fact, it wasn't even tap water. It's clean. It's potable water, but it wasn't treated,
Yeah.
and it was dumped on the ground at Boca Chica, which is basically a beach in a very rainy area. So this is somewhere where millions of gallons of water get dumped on the ground every day anyway. And they slapped on a $300,000 fine for that. That is, and yes, it's a wealthy company owned by the wealthiest individual, so they can afford it. But that sort of thing slows down innovation. It
And I
holds
think
back the
isn't he going to be
country.
like the czar or something like that? Czar or job
He
czar
came up with Department of Government Efficiency,
efficiency. Okay.
but it's a thing that he and Vivek Ramaswamy discussed. Remember
Okay.
that guy?
Yes, yes, yes.
He was in the primaries too.
Yeah.
And Vivek went through the whole primary saying he wants to go and do a cut. He wants to get rid of 50% of the federal government in the first year and maybe 70% overall. And everybody saying, oh, that's too drastic, that is too much, that's too rough. And when he spoke, when Elon interviewed him, and he told him the same plan, Elon said, no, that's not enough. And if you doubt it, Twitter, when Elon bought that, he cut 80% of the staff.
I remember that.
And it's running better now. And they added more features in the last 2 years than they added in the 10 years before. After he cut 80% of the staff. So don't believe he won't do it.
Okay. Stero, you have any
Yes,
last
sir.
things you want to say to them?
I mean, it's been a pleasure speaking with our guest this evening, getting an interesting perspective. Learned a few things.
A lot. Yeah.
You know, it was
Yeah.
very informative.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of Chief and Stero Let's Talk, the Caribbean Connection, and we'll be sure to keep you guys abreast of, you know, things up and coming throughout this particular presidency. So stay tuned.
Okay, all right.
All right. So,
And my brothers, let's
Mhm.
do this again.
no doubt. I like to let everyone let them know. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share our our channel. And we'll speak to you soon.
All
Peace.
righty.